It took me years to have the courage to tell this. And even today, it still feels wrong to remember that night. I was alone on the road. No cars, no lights, just me, the sound of the engine, and Max. That's when he started barking. It wasn't a normal bark. It was low, constant. Like he was warning about something, like there was someone there. I looked at the road. There was nothing. But Max wouldn't take his eyes off the darkness beside the car. And it was at that moment that I felt it, that feeling. The feeling that I wasn't alone. Minutes later, I stopped the car because of something on the road. And it was the worst decision of my life, because that night, I found out that there are things in the forest that don't make a sound until it's too late. And when I finally understood what was watching us, there was no going back. It was Jesekunde Eve 2022, one of the most semester mal. Anyone who has spent a long time away from family knows what it's like. There comes a point when all you want is to go back, see familiar faces, hear familiar voices, and, for a few days, completely forget the rest of the world. But that year, there was something different. Even with the trip back, even with the expectation of seeing everyone, there was a strange emptiness inside me, as if something was out of place, and I couldn't explain why. The flight was delayed more than expected. My parents were waiting for me, but they decided to go straight to the New Year's party at my cousin's house so they wouldn't miss it. I understood, but that meant that when I finally arrived, the house was completely empty. And that's when that feeling of isolation, which had been following me since the end of the semester, seemed to grow even stronger. The only company I had that night was Max. He had always been more than a dog to me. He was loyal, attentive, and, above all, he had that special instinct. Anyone who has lived with a German Shepherd knows they notice things we don't, and that night, without me knowing it yet, that would make all the difference. It was already past 10 at night when I got home. The Uber dropped me off at the entrance, and the silence of the place bothered me more than it should have. There were no lights on, no sound at all. Just the soft wind passing through the trees. Without thinking much, went inside, quickly grabbed the spare car keys, threw Mike's in the back seat, and left again. I just wanted to get to the party as soon as possible and leave that strange feeling behind. The car was old, the kind that makes more noise than it should, but it still worked well enough. As soon as I got on the road, I noticed everything felt different. Maybe it was the time, maybe it was the exhaustion, but the road felt longer, quieter, emptier than I remembered. The headlights illuminated only a small stretch ahead, while everything else was swallowed by darkness. On both sides, open fields, and further ahead, the dense line of forest, with tall trees that seemed to stretch endlessly. Anyone who has driven on roads like that at night knows. There's a kind of silence that isn't normal. A heavy silence that seems to press on your thoughts, as if the world around you has slowed down or even stopped completely. And that was exactly the feeling that started to bother me. At first, I tried to ignore it. I held the steering wheel firmly and kept going. But the more I drove, the more that discomfort grew. It wasn't fear yet. It was something subtler. As if my body was reacting before my mind understood why. Max was in the passenger seat. At first, he seemed calm, but gradually, something changed. He became stiff, too quiet. His eyes fixed on the road, unblinking, focused on something invisible. That caught my attention, but I tried not to think too much about it. I thought maybe it was just the environment, the darkness, or even the cold, but his behavior kept changing. He started shifting slightly, adjusting his position on the seat. Then he let out a small whine, almost inaudible. It was so subtle that, if it weren't for the absolute silence of the road, I might not have noticed. But I did, and it stayed in my head. I glanced around quickly. There was nothing. No car coming in the opposite direction, no distant lights, no movement. Just the empty road, the constant sound of the engine, and the wind brushing along the sides of the car. But there was something else, a feeling. That uncomfortable feeling that something wasn't right on that road. Max suddenly stood up. The fur on the back of his neck bristled in a way I had never seen before. He slowly turned his head toward the passenger window and became completely still. That's when the air inside the car seemed to change. I couldn't explain it, but in that moment, I was sure of one thing. We weren't alone on that dark road. And it was right after that he started barking. Max's bark wasn't loud or aggressive. It was steady, controlled, as if he was trying to warn, not attack. Anyone who has seen a dog react to something unknown knows the difference. That wasn't anger, it was alertness. I tried to calm him down, said his name a few times, but my own voice sounded strange in that silence. It was as if the sound didn't travel properly, as if it was swallowed before going very far. Max didn't respond to me. He kept his eyes fixed on the darkness outside, following something I simply couldn't see. The feeling came back, stronger. That uncomfortable sense of being watched grew inside me as I kept driving. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and kept going, trying to ignore it, but the body doesn't lie. And mine was already on alert. My heart was beating faster than it should, and a strange tension began to spread across my shoulders, as if something was about to happen. A few minutes later, it did. Suddenly, something appeared in front of the car. A fallen tree blocking the road. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly because of the snow starting to cover the asphalt, and for a moment I thought I would lose control. I managed to stop just a few meters from the trunk. I stayed there, motionless, breathing heavily, trying to understand. It didn't make sense. The road had been clear before. I was absolutely sure of that in that strange moment. I turned off the car for a second, and the silence that took over was even worse. Without the engine, without movement. Everything felt dead around me. Not even the wind made a sound at that moment. I got out of the car. The cold hit me immediately, cutting across my face and hands. It was the kind of cold you don't have time to get used to. Max got out right after, but he didn't stay by my side. He started sniffing the ground, restless, walking in short circles as if trying to locate something. "Easy, Max," I muttered, more to myself than to him. I went to the tree and started pushing the branches. I just wanted to clear the road and get out of there as quickly as possible. But while I was doing that, I felt something change around me. That's when I heard it. A crack, loud, sharp, coming from the direction of the forest. I froze instantly. I stayed still, trying to listen better. Nothing, then another one, closer. Branches breaking, slow, heavy. That wasn't the wind. It wasn't something small. It was as if something big was moving among the trees. Carefully, in that darkness, my heart started racing. I looked around, trying to see something beyond the darkness, but the car headlights only illuminated part of the road. The rest was a black void. That's when I realized Max was no longer near me. I looked up and saw him a few meters ahead, standing at the edge of the forest, completely still. His body rigid, breathing heavy, eyes fixed on the darkness between the trees. "Max, come here." He didn't move. Another crack echoed, even closer, and before I could react, he bolted. Ran straight into the woods. "Max," I shouted. but my voice seemed to disappear into the air. There was no response. No returning sound. Just absolute silence. And that growing feeling that I had just made a mistake. I stood still for a few seconds, thinking, right there. I had a choice, go back to the car, or go after him. And even though something inside me screamed not to do it, I went. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and took the first step toward the dark forest. The ground was covered by a thin layer of snow, crunching under my feet with every movement. The sound felt too loud, as if echoing throughout the entire forest. Every step I took gave away my presence. The trees around me were tall, dense, blocking almost all the light. The flashlight illuminated only a few meters ahead, creating shadows that seemed to move with the wind. And in the middle of it all, there was something else, a presence. I couldn't see it, couldn't explain it, but I could feel it. It was as if something was there with me, following me, watching every step I took, waiting in the darkness. The wind began to blow stronger through the branches, making the branches move, creating an irregular sound, almost like whispers. But behind that, there was another noise, footsteps, slow, heavy, following me. My entire body froze for a moment, but even so, I kept walking because at that point, going back no longer felt like an option in that strange place. I kept moving deeper into the forest, even with every part of my body telling me to stop. Anyone who has entered a dense forest at night knows. There comes a moment when you completely lose your sense of direction, of time, and especially of safety. And that was exactly what started happening to me during that tense walk. The phone light trembled in my hand, not just because of the wind, but because of the nervousness I could no longer control. Every shadow seemed to move on its own. Every twisted branch looked like a shape, a silhouette, something that shouldn't be there. And then I heard it. A bark, faint, distant. Max. Actually, that moment, a brief relief ran through my body. He was alive. He was there. But that relief didn't last long, because the sound suddenly stopped. It just stopped. No continuation. No echo. Nothing. The silence that came after was worse than any noise. It was as if the entire forest had stopped. No wind, no leaves, no animal sounds, nothing. And that's when I realized I wasn't alone. A few more steps, and I saw it. A shadow, too tall, too still. It didn't have a defined shape, but it also wasn't something natural. It was as if it was partially hidden among the trees, silently watching. I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't think, but I knew. It was watching me, even without seeing eyes. I felt it. A violent crack broke the silence behind me. I turned immediately, and that's when Max came running toward me. But something was wrong. Very wrong at that moment. His body was rigid. His tail completely tucked between his legs. He was trembling in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't just pain. It was fear. Deep fear. I dropped to my knees instantly. Max. When my hands touched him, I felt it. Wet. Warm. I looked at my hands and saw the blood running. A lot of blood. The wounds on his back were deep, irregular, as if something had torn through the skin with immense force. It didn't look like a normal attack. It didn't look like anything I had ever seen before. Max curled up close to me, trembling, without taking his eyes off the darkness behind me, as if it was still there, waiting for the right moment. Actually, that moment something inside me broke. I didn't try to understand. I didn't try to look again. I just acted. I picked Max up in my arms and started running. The way back felt much longer, The trees, closer. The air, heavier. My breathing faltered. My legs ached, but I couldn't stop. I knew I had to get out of there as fast as possible. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me, heavy, fast, getting closer. It was coming. I knew it. And I also knew that if I looked back, I would see something that would never leave my mind. So I didn't look. I kept running. Max trembled in my arms, his body cold as breathing wick, while fear crushed my chest. When I finally saw the car in the distance, I felt a surge of hope. I sped up, almost stumbling in the snow, trying to get there as quickly as possible. But when I got closer, I stopped because there was movement in the shadows. At the edge of the forest, several shapes, still, motionless, watching. I couldn't tell what they were at that moment. They had no clear form. They didn't move. But they were there, as if they were waiting, as if they were watching. A chill ran through my entire body. I didn't think twice. I put Max in the back seat, got into the car, and sped off as fast as I could. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't try to understand. I just wanted to get out of there. I drove for several minutes until I found an open veterinarian, but it was too late. He didn't make it. The vet examined the wounds with a confused expression and said something that stayed with me to this day. This only a bear could do. I just agreed. I nodded, because it was easier to accept that than to face the truth. Easier than trying to explain what I saw. Easier than admitting that it wasn't a bear. When I told everything to my father, he didn't laugh. He didn't doubt me. He just looked at me, serious, and said something I never forgot. There are things in this world we don't understand, and it's better that way. And since that night, I've never gone back to that road, because deep down, I know it's still there. In the forest waiting, watching, maybe just waiting for someone to pass by again, like I did that night. And if there's one thing I learned after all of this, it's that some things are better left unknown. Good night.